Crisis in Malawi. Nearly 3 million people there are facing shortages of all food as drought grips southern Africa.
The Nigerian government offers help to farmers with a program aimed at boosting the nation's domestic production of rice.
And crop raiding by elephants still a major issue in Kenya, but one elephant researcher is helping to alleviate the problem. Africa 54 starts right now.
Hello and welcome. I'm Adeshawa Josh at Channels Television in Lagos. Welcome to Africa 54. Stay with us in the next half hour for news and stories from Nigeria and the world.
And I'm Esther Gido-Ewart of the Voice of America, coming to you from our VOA Global Headquarters in Washington.
With falling oil prices, there's an urgent need for economic diversification in Nigeria. So the government is focusing on other sectors such as agriculture with a central bank initiative called Anchor Borrowers Program. It's aimed at boosting Nigeria's domestic rice production. Take a look.
It's no longer news that the fall in the price of oil has affected most economies, and the only option they have is to diversify. Nigeria is no exception. One of the steps the federal government has taken is through its CBN Anchor Borrowers Program to boost food production and also reduce unemployment, which was launched in 2015. The CBN governor believes Nigeria can cultivate and produce rice and wheat that should be enough even for exportation.
This is just a pilot phase which we decided to conduct in Kebbi State. Under this program, we had 78,000 farmers that benefited from the Anchor Borrower programs. All we gave them was just a maximum of 210,000 naira to cultivate a hectare of land. And you all heard it when one of the farmers was talking. He says by the end of this year, Kebbi State alone will be able to produce 1 million metric tons of rice for Nigeria.
According to statistics, Nigerians consume about 5.5 million tons of rice annually, of which 3.6 million tons are locally produced, mostly by farmers for personal consumption. Currently, the nation spends about 365 billion naira per year importing the remaining 1.9 million tons. That's because local production is unable to satisfy the huge demand for rice in Nigeria, a situation the Minister of Agriculture is not pleased with.
Nigeria's need now is 7 million tons. We need only 7 other states to do the same. The extra we can export. Why are we spending $5 million a day importing rice? $5 million a day importing rice from Thailand and Vietnam. What is it they can do, we can do. That's how we ran this country bankrupt. Excessive, almost mindless importation. Toothpicks, pencils, erasers, rubber bands, handkerchiefs, envelopes, champagne, red wine, for God's sake. Now, what do we do with our time? We're almost 200 million people. This is the point.
The amount spent on importation of rice from India and Thailand has been on the increase over the years. And if government keeps giving farmers the necessary support, Nigeria may well be on its way to self-sufficiency in this area.
Now, while Nigeria tries to grow more rice, nearly 3 million people in Malawi are facing shortages of all food as drought grips southern Africa. The government has declared a national disaster. Lamek Masina reports for VOA.
Dry, scorched fields like this one have become a common sight in southern Malawi. Flash floods and dry spells caused by El Nino weather patterns hit the maize crop, leading to a deficit of about 1 million metric tons. This follows a disappointing harvest last year as well. Crops like potatoes and cassava proved more resilient.
We have long been relying on maize, but this year the crop did not do well. Now we are relying on these pigeon peas we believe will bail us out from hunger.
Families are having to find alternatives to the maize porridge they would normally eat.
Many days we eat pumpkins that we sometimes find in our failed maize field.
Food prices have gone up at the market. The price of maize has tripled.
We have to raise the prices because we have to transport it from farther away, but people are not buying.
they don't have enough money.
Nearly half of Malawi's children were already chronically undernourished in 2014. Now, 4% of children are suffering severe acute malnutrition, according to UNICEF. Water sources have also been affected.
Almost all the taps around our area have run dry. In most cases, we wake up around 2 a.m. to try to get water at the only kiosk.
The next harvest is 12 months away. About 2.8 million people already will need food aid into 2017, and aid agencies expect that number to balloon in the coming months. Lamek Masina for VOA News, Blantyre, Malawi.
More trouble in Somalia. Islamic State militants claimed their first attack there last week. And also, Al-Shabab militants have stepped up their attacks as Somalia prepares for elections. There are growing frustrations among Somalia's Western backers over the country's slow progress in forming its own armed forces. Henry Rickwell reports for VOA.
Somali authorities say they are countering a resurgence from Al-Shabab rebels after years of progress in driving back the militants.
Al-Shabab has changed strategically their operations from the face-to-face fight to target, the military bases, or target to the civilians, such as hotels, so they can terrorize the civilian population.
That has included a series of suicide attacks in recent weeks, many of them targeting government figures in the capital, Mogadishu. Analysts say Al-Shabab has been extending its reach across East Africa as it has lost territory in Somalia.
So we've seen it exert a much greater level of influence in Kenya, for example. There's much higher levels of recruitment and fundraising going on in Kenya.
Kenya recently marked the first anniversary of the Garissa University attack, when Al-Shabab gunmen killed 148 people. Kenya is one of the main contributors to the African Union peacekeeping force known as AMISOM. After initial territorial gains, Somali authorities say AMISOM forces have been largely confined to their barracks for the past year.
What we're seeing now is that AMISOM, as a result of those successes, is to a certain extent overstretched. Meaning that it's having problems holding on to and establishing a presence in the territories that it has retaken.
Henline says AMISOM is also increasingly fragmented.
In Somalia especially, there is suspicion about what troop contributing countries are, what their interests are in the country, and that they may not be operating for the greater good of Somalia.
Somalia's Western backers, including the United States, have been effectively paying the wages of Somali government troops. The European Union recently cut the monthly stipend it pays to AMISOM soldiers.
They need support by the international community because the government is financially not in a position to pay their salaries and to arm their military, and also to lift the arms embargo against the Somali National Army.
The United States has carried out a series of drone strikes against Al-Shabab militants. The Somali government has welcomed the intervention and warns of a growing threat in the run-up to elections scheduled later this year. Henry Richwell for VOA News, London.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa54, and check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, the front-runner for the Republican nomination for U.S. president has moved very close to being the nominee, and Donald Trump delivered his first foreign policy speech last week. That story after the break.